Alright, I've got some homework. Last time I was working on Arthur's FC. So this is FC dash surround, which I've cut completely out. It had less cut out, but I've cut more out because I just want to use it as a frame. So my plan is, this is a VT Commodore dash, and if we can use the VT that dash in the car, the engine's VT, the computer's all VT, this will plug straight in and everything will just work. So what I decided to do is I covered it in foil, so I'm not going to get shit all over it. I'm going to tape the back of this up, and I'm actually going to fill all in here with expandy foam. And so my plan is to sort of get a nice shape, and then it's got you can see this shape in the top of the FC one, so I can bring that sort of around and make it work with this dash, make the thing look sort of organic, and we'll give it a shot and see how I wind up. I've got it set in the right pot now. I've cut away some pieces in here so that it can sit in. I still don't know, like, we're going to put this thing in and just see if it fits in the car at all. But there's space behind there, and you know what, we can cut shit up if we need to. So as long as we can keep it working, I think we'll be okay. I've made it so that I sort of angled it back a bit because I think the VT is like further back, like the dash is further away from you, and you sit lower in a car. Whereas old cars, you tend to sit higher. The old one was flat on the surface pretty much, and so this angled it back a little bit just so hopefully it'll work a bit better, and it makes this part not super bulky towards you. It'll have some depth to it in the back because once I've done foam, I'll shape all the foam, make it look nice, follow the curves I want to follow, and then I'll fiberglass it and then fill it and epoxy it. So traditionally these were a painted part, so it'll be painted again. Arthur's just said make it look like it's supposed to be there, so that's what I'm going to do. Alright, anyone who's ever played with this shit knows that it's sticky as hell, so that's just filled up. I think this here will harden to like it'd be the right point where I can just sort of rotate the dash out from inside of it, and so it'll be like, it'll sort of rotate up into place. So once this goes hard, I'll sort of do some basic shaping of it, get it to a spot where I'm pretty happy with how it looks, and then I'll probably fiberglass on it so that it's set and structural, and then I'll do fine filler just to get it 100% smooth. But right now, just waiting for this weird shit to go off. Expandy foam, it's really not great. The bubbles on the inside of it aren't uniform, which means that when you're shaping it, you sometimes get big craters and stuff like that. I've played with it a bit before. This is the first time I've used it. Just came up with this idea for how I think this will work. If this doesn't work, I can just clean it all off and do something else. But I think it'll work. It'll give us the right shapes, I think, for what he wants for his car, and it'll mean that we can use the OG Commodore dash in it and everything just plugs in. Alright, a couple of days to harden down, and the dash has popped clean out of there and left me with a nice surround here. So what I plan to do is trim this so you can view the dash through there, and then I'll smooth out all the rest. So I'll start by trimming it and making sure that it's, you know, around about the right size, and then I'll do all the rest. You can see how much this expands, and it's actually quite, like, it's stiff. It holds its shape, which is good because you can actually sand it, like, you know, with whatever grit. You can see it expanded a whole lot more than in that initial video. So yeah, that's it. A couple of days now. It might actually still even be a bit damp in underneath all of this, but once I've sort of cut off all the excess and figured out where I'm at, we'll have a better idea. Anyway, we'll get stuck into that. Alright, just been carving with like a knife, just cutting out excess foam and shaping this thing to where I'm happy with the rough of it. So what I want to do, just put a peak on here, in the original one, there's this shape here, and I want to bring that shape out and around to make this part look, you know, like it belonged on the existing car. Same as in the bottom here, I've done this and gone through there. The original one was sort of a big round bit in the center with two smaller shapes off the side. And if I can just sort of emulate that shape a bit, I might even add material here and just bring this into like a bit of a beak, just a bit of a peak in here. So I might have to do that. The more I look at it, the more I probably will. So if I'm going to do that, I'll just cover this in foil again. It slots up in here really nice. So like it's going to sit up in there really nice. Once I've fiberglassed the back of this, it'll lock in hard. I'll be able to sand the back a little bit to give it some space, put some glass on it, and wedge the thing in there, let it go hard, and then then it'll be set and it'll have its positioning, and then you can lock it in with some screws or something at the bottom and just lock it up in there. You know, bit of anti-rattle tape around it, and it'll be minty fresh. Alright, been cutting away bits and sanding and smoothing and shaping and whatnot, and I think this is about where we need to sit. So the plan is to cover this in something decent and actually fiberglass the back side where it's all going to sit so that that's set. I can do some fiberglassing up around the corners here, but I kind of want to, after the fiberglassing at the back is set, the front foam will have a bit more structure. At the moment, you see it's quite flexible, it moves, right? So it'll move while I'm sanding it and trying to shape it, and that means that I'm not getting accurate shaping. I'm not getting what I want as far as the overall look and feel goes. And then I'll glass it all and fill it and sand it and smooth it and sand it and smooth it and repeat until such time as I'm happy with it. Alright, did a little more shaping on this, sort of get it to where I'm happy with it. This is kind of pretty good now. I was sort of thinking about it, and like it looked sort of too crowded in, if that makes sense. So what I did was went in and just changed the angle of all of these sides and just really opened them out and smoothed them around, so that they like it looks sort of more organic. It pulls in, it doesn't sort of like the sides before were curled in and had like a bit of a straight down that way towards the face of the cluster. So now what they do is they start from the point of contact and they sort of come out at an angle. I can still actually probably widen out through here a lot more, which will give the whole gauge like more of an open look and more of an open feel. So what I'm doing is I put my trusty Ozito drill in the vise with a flappy on it, and I just set it to slow, press the button, and then I can, you know, actually hold the piece and work the piece around it. So I'm just going to do a bit more, particularly here. I really want to bring this sort of piece down. Like I can see there's not a lot of bulk here, but there's like a lot of bulk here, so I'm just going to bring this down a bit. So for that I'm just using, you know, it's an 80 grit on a block. Probably is a far less chunky grit, like a far more chunky grit, like a 40 or something like that. You can see the material comes off really easy, and the idea is just to bring that down, same as if I was shaping a surfboard. Foam's a lot easier to shape than filler, so I'll just keep working that down. I've got these breakthroughs just here and here. Now I'm going to glass this and then see where they sit, and if they're too high, we can either just build up a tiny bit here into the shape of it, or we can actually grind the edge of this down, the edge of the piece down, because it's a custom piece. It doesn't matter, you can always grind down a new one if you want to fit it, and the shape of this looking correct is more important than a little bit being ground out of the side of that you'll never see if you're you know, sitting in the car. Yeah, I think this will do. I might just take a bit more of the bulk off this peak here, just to give it a bit more sharpness, just so quite chunky and thick, and I think it could come down a lot. It's a bit uneven too. I'll get some more off this side here. Just here, you can see it's sort of a bit odd shaped. I'll just take a bit more off that, and then I think I'll wrap this up and I'll glass this whole thing in, and then I'll do a bunch of sanding on it. I'll glass the back of it as well, so it's sort of, you know, nice and strong, and then that means that I can sand the front of it. If I blow through, it doesn't matter. I can glass again, and then all of the craters will just need to have filler applied so they come in. I need to even out everything, sharpen up the lines on it that I want sharp, and then the grooves. So in here, this is quite a hard corner in the back of this part here, so I want to continue that through to here, which is why I think this piece here is going to need to be ground down, just so that that can follow its curve to the edge. This piece can sort of be pronounced and have a hard edge in it, like the original one did, and just gives it a bit of flavour and makes it look less like a blob. But I think overall, I think I'm pretty stoked with how this has come out, and it's gonna, all going well, it'll fit in the spot, and just, you know, once this is painted how he wants it, it'll just look the part. Yeah, be pretty sweet. I still don't know if I want to cut away this piece of metal more at the bottom here and let that part round out a little more, just because there's a hard edge because of the way this is cut. So I might give that a slice before I glass it, or after I glass it, won't matter. I can shape anything afterwards or before, it doesn't matter. The good thing is once the glass is on there, it just doesn't move. It's a lot stiffer, and you can, you know, grind on it without it moving. It's a real pain in the ass to grind on because it shunts around. Like you can see all these bits here are sort of flexed out. You can see them flexing out. It moves quite easily. These chunks in the corner aren't so bad because they're contained and they're quite thick, but I've cut away the back to give clearance for stuff and for fitment. So yeah, we'll continue on. Done more shaping, bro. Just opened it out a bit, made it a bit nicer. A little more to do, and then I'll glass it in. Alright, so I've got some epoxy in the back here, epoxy resin with some filler in it, just to make it thicker, and then some fiberglass, and then some more epoxy without filler, so that it all soaks into the holes and adheres to the foam and makes the back of it nice and structural. I think I'll leave this where it is and epoxy over the front as well and join it along here. Then I can cut all of that out later and really get the edge to look perfect, like machine it perfect, and then fill up to it, and it'll be good. Alright, Arthur's dash surrounds part, whatever part it is. So I've just glassed in this here. I've put a lot of resin in around the corners here just to fill in everything. This foam, when you use it, it comes up with quite big holes. It's not very good, but this will give it some structure, so I can sand all of this smooth, and then we can fill it if we need to go on from here. Next plan is I'm going to let this harden up, and then I'm going to trim out everything, pull the dash out, and make sure everything fits in and out real easy, or easy-ish, and then it'll actually go back to Arthur's place. So he can just test fit it, and we can make sure that we don't need to make any major alterations to it, like move it backward or forward or remake the entire thing. Okay, back on the dash surround for Arthur. So this is all glassed in now. I'm just going to do some trimming, but it fits really nice and locks into place. So once it comes to figuring out how to mount it to the car, this piece can go in, and then this can go in from behind, and we'll just have to create whatever clearance we need to for the dashboard behind it. I don't think it's going to be too much because it's not super deep, but we'll just have to look. Just going to trim this up a bit, and then double check that I'm happy with this bit, I think, but that might come later. It just needs a general cleanup. I'll get the die grinder out, I'll smooth around all these edges here and just make it nice, and sand all of these edges and blend them all into the edge of the metal, and then the whole thing can just get another layer of just epoxy resin. Once it's all sanded back and I'm happy, I still don't know what's going to happen with these two bits here. So this is where the plastic comes up too much for this curve. So I don't know if I'm just going to fill them or if I'm actually going to grind them out and then grind the plastic away as well. Because I've got plenty to work with. You can see it's only going to be here and here, and it'll just be like a little half moon. It won't even, you know, it won't even change the look of it or anything. Alright, part 457.5 of putting a Commodore dash into something that's not a Commodore. So I've done some clean up on the fiberglass. Pretty happy with the shape. Lines up pretty good. I think next step is to send it back to Arthur and get him to cram it in the car and just see what he thinks and if he's happy with it or not. There's still plenty I can do to change it. I can bring this whole entire lip back a bit, thin that out a bit maybe. Just don't know. It just depends on what angle it sits at and how it looks. I've machined a fair bit away here, like sanded a fair bit away, and I've ended up back into the foam. So I'm just going to have to coat this whole thing in resin again, but I am going to wait until we're happy with the final outline shape. And then what I'll do is I'll mask this all off again, and I'll put this in place, and I'll actually use filler just to finish the shape. I use some fiberglass filler where there's some deep bits here, get it all smooth. I have actually made the hard lines in the edge here, so I think that looks pretty good. I've just sanded away a little bit of the edge of this just to make that happen. It's really bugger all. I've got plenty more I could use, but I don't need to. This slots into place really nice. You can see these little tabs here line up underneath with the clear. They just go around the edge of it and locks into place, so it's not going to go anywhere once it's in there and we put whatever to hold it in. It is just really whether or not he's happy with how it sits in the car and the profiles that are in it. So I've trimmed around all the edges and sanded it all back. I'm just going to send it to him and see what he says. So next step will be, you know, filler and shit, but I don't know. Get it to fit first. Good thing is, because I've now done all this, I've been able to remove a lot of the excess foam from the back here. Push that down. I could actually just grind all of that out. That's often what they do after they've done. If they used foam to prototype a part, they'll actually take all the foam away and leave you with just the skin of the part. I could do that. I did a fair bit from here, so that's still soft. So what I'll do is, once we're happy with how it sits, I'll just cover all of that in resin, just so it, you know, is nice and doesn't move. I'll probably gouge out a bit more and then just cover it in resin, just so it's sort of solid and doesn't create dust and whatnot. Other than that, pretty good.